Hello, my name is Mati Abroi, and you're welcome to Estonian Real Podcast. And today's guest is Paul from Paul Unslaved YouTube channel. And welcome, Paul. Thank you for coming.
Hey, what's going on, Matt? It's good to be here.
Great to be here as well. But talk to you about, introduce yourself, at who you are, where you come from, how you got there, why you're doing it.
Okay, all right. So yeah, basically, I go by the name of Paul Unslaved. If most people are gonna probably know me, if they know me at all, it's gonna be from originally the stop on the side of the road. One of the public servants, policy enforcement had stopped me because I had no license plate. And then I had no registration, insurance, no license plate, no license if I didn't say that. But yeah, I didn't have anything that, where we come to believe that you're supposed to have in order to move our property around. So, long story short, we had a conversation and it's up on my YouTube channel where he wound up, letting me go on my way because it is the common law, right? Constitutional law. It's also universal law, understanding that we are all created equal here and that no man or woman has a right to rule over or regulate anybody else's freedom of movement, right? We have a right to travel in what we call the United States, right? I don't refer to it as that. I call it America because there's a issue with that terminology, right? The corporation and all that. But yeah, pretty much showed everybody, including myself, what was possible. Because again, this has been ruled on in the past. It's pretty much a common law understanding that all interactions in this country or on this land have to be voluntary, right? They have to be consensual and voluntary. Nobody can be coerced or put upon duress in order to get man and woman to perform for corporations and what we call government, right? At a certain point in our country, government has been reduced to essentially municipal corporations. So they have no delegation of authority over man and woman, over American nationals. They believe they have authority over what we call United States citizens. So that's pretty much what I'm doing at this point is, learning for myself, seeking more truth and understanding about who and what we are here and how to protect ourselves and our rights. And living that, providing an example for myself and others of the world that I want to live in,
How it's been going on so far? It's like being like a fun ride, or is there's like ups and downs?
Yeah, I mean, there's challenges, but once you people talk oftentimes throughout the ages about faith. This is not some religiosity dogma I'm talking about. This is some actual relationship with the universe and its creator, its law. So once you access and touch a level of discipline, right, we become a disciple and a student of life and the universe. Once you touch a certain level of discipline and honesty with yourself and objective logic, morals, and ethics, there's really no going back. I mean, they write movies about this stuff. Once you are awakened like Neo to the neocortical thought, the higher level thought function, just conscience is what we call it. Once you're awakened to that world and you live from that place, there's no reason for me to play games with anyone else anymore. Because again, the whole intent of law, quote unquote, or the legal system, supposedly, is to keep everyone safe and orderly and regulated. Well, I don't have any issues with my fellow man and woman day to day. I move my property around. I don't cause any harm. There's no issues. So, they make issues. They're creating issues, right? So even in the intent of their system and what it's supposed to do, they have to be held accountable and responsible to that. So if you're going to claim you're keeping everybody safe or upholding rights, you have to do one or the other. That means that these public servants really should not be coming until they're called. They should not be there until the service is needed. But again, through assumption and presumption, tacit agreement and contracts, we have all acquiesced or given over our power to these folks to be regulated. That's what a license plate is. That's what registration is. That's what licensure is. Giving up our rights for benefits and privileges. And once we do that, they're going to expect performance out of us, right? Because they're providing us benefits and privileges, so they have a rule, an ability they believe to dictate to us.
So pretty much because we believe that government wants to help us, we give our rights without knowing that that is the other way around, that they want to like imprison us and make us our slaves. And do I understand correctly?
Well, in a way, right? I mean, again, like they say, it's not, to me, it's not as cut and dry as government is one thing, right? Because government is just a collection of men and women from the same households that we grew up in, right? So we're all taught the same thing. So it's a collection of beliefs, believing the same thing, the idea of authority, right? We, as, you know, like, not, I won't say we, but the average citizen believes in the concept of authority, and that men can sit around and make laws and take them away. It's because we've lost touch with the true lawmaker, right? Now, this is getting back to spirituality. You have a lot of quote unquote Republicans in this country who will say, they'll talk about the family, principles, faith-based values. That's what that was, right? And I'm not talking about the neocon, you know, new age Republican nonsense of politics. I'm saying there is an ethic and an understanding that this country and most countries were created out of, which is like the Hopi prophecy says, you know, strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. So we're always going through those cycles in civilizations, right? Because we're either observing the law, the common sense, the ethics, the morals, the principles, the values, the spirituality, or we're not. We've lost track of that. We've become worldly people. We're focused on culture, right? The root word is cult. We're interested in getting the next paycheck, what we're going to wear, what we're going to eat. You know, we've just become of the world, in the world and of it, and we've lost track of who and what we are on a spiritual level. So therefore, we see a decline in civilization, right? We're given the kingdom of heaven if we will keep the faith and do what's true and what's right. If not, if we slip and we lose sight of who and what we are, we will create a hell on earth. And that's what we're seeing now, I believe, you know?
But how long you have been doing this, reading about the law, teaching people about the common law, our rights, and interacting with the police officers?
Well, this has kind of been a lifelong process, but over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years, I really start to commit myself to the idea that I was put here, just like everyone else, as the Constitution says, by a higher force, you know, a force that pervades all things, gives us all conscience to ascertain right from wrong, you know, the true law. Once I came to that understanding, I realized, well, not only should I not give my power over to other people to make decisions for me logically, morally, ethically, but that I could not, right? It's not an option because it's a blasphemy, right? Every one of us is given the ability to freely choose. We're given a sole choice, right? Ability to choose freely from what we're given, right? And again, we can see the evidence that there is a direct right and wrong, cause and effect relationship to what we choose and what we get in our own lives and collectively. So once you realize the law, the nature of reality and consciousness and choice making and how you feel about that, right? Because again, I can choose, like they say in the Matrix, all I'm offering you is the truth. Here's the red or blue pill. But once you take the red pill, you can't go back. So, you know, once you access this kingdom and this understanding of how it all works, I don't believe it's necessarily even possible to go back. Because again, this is a spiritual awakening we're talking about. This is a consciousness that has risen and seen the mountaintop. So, you know, the peaks and valleys at this point just become part of the journey and the challenge, right? How could I ever lose sight of or forget about what I've been shown and what I feel and what has been provided to me through living this lifestyle, right? The truth, the life, and the way. When we live the truth in our life based on the way, there's no going back, right? You're going to have to essentially imprison me or crucify me. And then that makes you a wrongdoer, right? Because again, I'm not out here in controversy with my fellow man and woman. I do no harm. I live in the law of love, and I remain a peaceful being, right? Even when these beings come to do me harm and take my property, I still don't physically fight them. So, you know, it becomes now the question is, what is this world really about? And that's what we're seeing now. You know, the challenge for everybody to realize, what is this world all really about? And are we going to continue to make choices to give our power away, even though it's destroying us, destroying our economies, destroying our biology, our neurochemistry, it's destroying our interpersonal relationships? But we did that, right? We did that because we've ignored the law for the culture, right? What's on the TV? What do our neighbors think? What do our authorities tell us? It's all one big cult, man.
Okay. Yeah. So pretty much that we I think about, okay, but let's talk about the common law. Like you said, it is like universal law, but we average people like have known this man-made law. Can you tell us that what's like the difference and why we don't know more about this like thing called common law?
Sure. I mean, you have to figure, right? There's a good saying I like: birds that are born in a cage think that flying is an illness, or, you know, flying is scary, flying is strange, right? There's different ways you could put it, but essentially we've been a bunch of birds continually throughout the ages, the generations, born into a cage. So we think somebody being truly free, right, making their own decisions completely with their own mind and heart, not being dictated to, that's scary, that's weird, that's wrong, because that's what we're used to, right? We do what we know and what we've been shown. Every one of us was brought up by a family and parents that has told us respect the law, respect the authorities, but they never conceived of and perceived the fact that there's a law here beyond what's written down, right? So when each one of us knows in our mind and heart, we don't kill each other, we don't steal from each other. Now, maybe at certain times when we're broken people, like I have been in my past, we do wrong behaviors because we're broken. But when we come back to being healed and holistic, right, whole beings, balanced beings, we don't need to be told and someone write down to us, don't kill people, don't steal, right? We all generally are loving beings. We want to do right. We want to feel good about ourselves in the world. We just don't oftentimes know when we're right from wrong, right? And we have to be told, you know, because again, like I told one of the public servants the other day, how many times a day does someone tell you they didn't see a sign, so they didn't know what to do? Because we've been bred, right? Like a wolf is bred into a house dog. We no longer can look around and tell with our nature, our intuition, what's going on, right from wrong. We have to be commanded by the master. The same thing has happened to the human being that's happened to the modern day house dog. We've taken a wolf that was connected to the universe and knew how to be self-sufficient, knew who and what it was. You know, it knew when you got too close that it showed some teeth, you know, and I'm not talking about violence. I'm just saying standing your ground and who and what you are. Now you have essentially a bunch of domesticated sheeple, right? Cattle, basically on the farm. They got fence all around them. They're not interested in leaving. The grass is comfy. They get fed, you know, they get walked right into the barn. Everything's pretty much taken care of, and they believe they're being protected, right? Just like the cow thinks that its controllers and masters are protecting it and feeding it. And then one day it's slaughterhouse time, right? Then one day it's just slaughterhouse time, and that's just part of the game. So, you know, the same sort of conditions emulate themselves, I believe, over and over again. The universe is holographic. So the same way you have men and women who want to write down Bibles and scriptures and pervert them and say we have a right to capture other living beings, to enslave them and cage them because they're naive and ignorant and foolish, is the same way our masters have built a prison planet cage for us, and they're now harvesting us as resources, right? So I oftentimes tell people there's no mistake. Everybody that wants to continue to eat meat and keep other living beings who have their own freedom of choice, like they're your property, and you're going to house them and fatten them up and then slit their throat and feed on them. Just expect your masters who built a farm for you, who tax you, they shear you by taxing you, they dictate where you'll be and when you get out of line, they give you the cattle prod, right? Well, understand that the more that you keep acting like these people are here to keep you safe and you work for them and you get dictated to by them, just expect to be meeting that slaughterhouse at a certain point, right? Because one thing we know is power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you forget who and what you are in your own power and you give that away to an institution and a bunch of costume men, well, expect to be, like they say, the founder said, A nation of sheep will be run by wolves, right? So again, what we put out is what we get back. When you have 8 billion slaves who act like slaves, you're going to manifest a bunch of slave masters. And that's what we see. You know, the same way the sheep and the cattle manifest a bunch of predatory humans who are going to use them for their foolish nature, for their naivete nature, you know, their naive nature.
But what you're proposing is like we should live like fix ourselves and live according to our consciousnesses. Like following this, what the heart says that like do no harm and do not lie and do not steal. But is it possible that if we give up the authorities, the law enforcement, there will be we live in anarchy?
Well, there you go. See, now, I love that you said that, right? Because folks use this term anarchy, and because, again, the scripture says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. We use words and have no idea what they mean. Anarchy means no rulers, no masters, right? So when we get down to the root word of the words we're using, anarchy does not mean chaos. Chaos is when you make a whole set of men gods on earth and everyone else has to conform to what they say. That's chaos. It's not in order with creation. True order of creation is nobody is meant to dictate to anybody else. Like the Constitution says, all men and women are created equal. If we're created equal, how could you dictate to me what's for my own good? You're going against universal law. You're going against the law of this land, right? So the bottom line is anarchy, the state of no masters, no rulers, is a natural state of being for a human who has a spirit that yearns to be free. Every single one of us yearns to be free and co-create and do what we wish as long as we do no harm. And we have the right to do that. Why? Because it's a right action. Well, what's a wrong action? A wrong action is an action that causes someone else loss, injury, or harm. If we're not engaged in wrong action, then everything else we do is a right. And nobody has the right or ability to tell us not to do that, right? Especially at the end of a club or a gun. Do as I say or else. That's not how this works. You are public servants. You have been created and paid to work for us. We are there to be benefited by your service. We are not there to be controlled by you and harmed and cause loss. So we need to act like that and speak that to them and remind them. It's not about being angry. It's about everyone knowing their role, right? We are man and woman. We create government. Government is there to protect good people from bad people. Government is not there to restrict good people's forward movement and pursuit of happiness and property. That's not their job. Their job is to uphold our rights. And that's how you keep everybody safe and orderly, because the only true form of order is self-government. You can't force other people who are bad or wrong to do what's right. You can't, right? They say, those who make the law understand that bad people will find ways around that law. So the only people who wind up being affected by that law are good people. It's only good people who can't go buy a gun legally and lawfully from the store. Criminals get their guns, right? Go down to Mexico. Tell me how many people in Mexico, law-abiding citizens, are unarmed and at the will of the cartel. The cartel has guns. So if you say that they're criminals and you've outlawed guns for good people, bad people don't follow laws. They're always going to have guns and do what they please. So why shouldn't good people be allowed to do the same? It's a complete inversion. If good people are good people, they know the law. It's written in their mind and heart. They don't need to be told to not kill people, to not steal, to not lie. They know that because chances are they have religion or some kind of, excuse me, I didn't mean to use the word religion. They have spirituality in their family or in their teachings or in their inherent intuition and nature, right? They have something that's driving them to seek a better life than acting like a lowly animal, right? We're not some kind of predatory animal that does whatever it can get away with as long as it benefits ourselves. We are a social creature. We are an empathetic creature. We try to do the best we can to not hurt other people and not be hurt, you know?
And we talked about but not knowing the law or creating a new restriction. I remember when I read Robert Kiyosaki's book Poor Dad, Rich Dad, when he talked about the same thing, that because poor people don't understand how money works, they end up creating new laws that hurt themselves, not the rich people who they targeted.
Sure. There's definitely a level of, I don't ever like to get into like class division and class warfare, but there's definitely an element of this whole system that creates the money, right? The Federal Reserve System that creates money out of nothing. And they say really what they're using is our bodies, and they're using the certificates and Social Security system as a trust system. And they're getting paid 2 and 3 different times. Someone somewhere is getting paid 2 and 3 different times based on all this business they're doing with our bodies and our bonds and our certificates. So there's definitely a level of central banking being a linchpin, a cornerstone of how this all works and why it all works, right? Because it is all banking, right? The judge sits on a bench in Latin is bank. So, you know, the original court was held in a church, and then it became essentially a banking arm of the institutional state, right? So you have just really different arms of a banking system that has to get paid and generate its currency and keep its control, because again, it's a debt-based system. You see what happens when Gaddafi and others go and try to make their own gold currency that's backed by something, right? It's actually gold, it's silver, like we used to have the silver currency. They don't want that. They want centralized paper currency that's backed by nothing that they can print up and create. Therefore, they make the laws, right? Because one thing we know about worldly people is they're always on a quest for money and power. So that means they can be bought off, right? I'll give you the example. And, you know, I'm not going to say that this applies or doesn't apply, but it's a curious statistic for me, right? If I can be diplomatic in phrasing this, because, you know, YouTube and others have issues with questioning official sources. So based on the official sources, right, the most #1 owned stock by Congress in this country in 2020 was Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, 2 of the makers of what they're now pushing for everybody to have to be taking, right? So they're invested in companies that are creating products that they're then turning around and making laws saying everyone has to take them. So that's a conflict of interest. You can't do that, right? Just like it'd be like insider trading. You have insider knowledge of what's going to happen. Therefore, you invested and you're profiting off of supposedly other people being harmed, and you're trying to create law so people will take the products that are going to make you money. Now, if someone could correct me where I'm wrong, but as far as I'm concerned, you know, my logic or the logic objectively is that's a conflict of interest. You can't do that. You see what I'm saying? So this is part of the problem when you have, you know, what did the founder say? Because men and women are not angels, government is necessary. Well, I take the opposite approach. Because men and women are not angels, government will never be legitimate, because it will always wind up being taken over by the least among us. It'll always wind up being taken over by folks who yearn for power and control, right? They're not internally motivated by a need to do good and serve a higher power. Let's get real with ourselves. You think any of these folks from any of these countries when you look at them, they have a need in their heart to serve a higher power? No. They have a need for power, control, money, status, hierarchy, and validation from their peers. That's all it's about, you know? So the whole system uses the least among us in the lowest form of consciousness, which is ego consciousness, to deceive us all into a system that takes all of our power so a few can profit. And at the end of the day, they're so foolish and short-sighted, they don't understand no matter how much paper money they make and what they do with it, what good is it when you've gotten it by ill-gotten gains and when you're going into a world that's going to be destroyed? You're not going to be able to use it or spend it or enjoy it anyway. So again, this is what I call, or what throughout the ages refer to as Shaitan, right? Satan. It's an archetype. It's an energy. It's a state of consciousness and being that the whole world is involved in, a pursuit for mammon, money, status, power, egoic concepts, forgetting that we're all created to be a certain way. You can't ignore the way we're created to pursue these worldly endeavors. If you do, you will surely die. You will surely perish, right? What did they say in the scripture? You eat this apple, this knowledge, and you think you're going to become like God and remake the whole universe in your image. You will not become like God. You will surely die, right? You will become diseased and you will die. So that's what we're seeing right now, a whole race that thinks they're going to rewrite the program that's been put here, and therefore they're meeting more resistance, more suffering, and more death.
Yeah, I have to say that in Estonian government, there's also this conflict of interest, because there our say one of the secretaries or ministers have like a contract with say vaccine manufacturers, so like they like lots of money to gain it, and
Yep.
also our prime minister, I don't know what he's doing, but he's pretty much become a joke and more than tyrant at the same time. And
Yeah, well, like they say, you know, the original definition of fascism is the merger of state and corporate powers. So when your government starts teaming up with businesses and corporations and gets lobbyists and funding and all the other nonsense that they're involved in, that's when you know you're in fascism, right? When the state and corporate powers merge, there is no more impulse to do the right thing because it's right. Now everything is about a paycheck and a bottom line, you know? That's how we slip into authoritarianism. And that's what we're seeing now.
but also mentioned earlier that you have to understand the meaning of words, like anarchy means without master, without ruler. But when like I said, that when you police stops and asks you, why don't you have a license plate? And I'm traveling, not driving. And can you like explain it why it's important to know that what the word means, especially if you talk with the law enforcement?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that when we get back to the original law, words just communicate meaning. Meaning is inherent. You know, you can call a tree, but no matter what you call it, it's only a description of what the thing actually is. Mm-hmm. So we actually have rights because we're born free, and there is nobody who can legitimately regulate us till we go into contract somewhere along the way. So you're reintroducing these men and women, these worldly men and women, to the idea that, especially in this country, right? Other countries may not be on the books, right, as a land of the people, by the people, for the people. But in this country, the cornerstone of the foundation here is men and women make the law, right? Through our paperwork, through our status, through our standing, through creating record, through understanding the constitutional law, which is just universal law codified in a contract, right? We made a contract with government. And we said, here's what you will do and not do. And when you get out of bounds, you become illegitimate. So anything you say or do at that point will be used against you. The law was originally created for us to maintain our rights and freedoms. It was not created for them to regulate our rights and freedoms. That's not how this works, right? But again, when the inmates start running the asylum because everybody forgets who and what they are, what their role and position is in the universal law and hierarchy, and again, that's all by design. You have, like Stalin said, you give me 20 years and I'll have the mind and heart completely of the children. We've all been brought up in these systems where they tell you, you're a US citizen. Go fill out your paperwork like this. This is who and what you are. They're in there teaching you all the arts, right? But they're never teaching you who and what you are, showing you anything of value. So now you have 18 years of trade, not even trade training. It's arts training, you know, science, mathematics, and nobody's using that. So you get out into the world, you have no trade, you have no idea who and what you are in the legal and lawful system. And to me, that's all by design. You know, they put the little black square on your head when you go off to graduation. And then if you go off to higher education into the college, they're going to teach you the legal system. They're not going to teach you the ins and outs of the lawful system, right? They want you to speak legalese. They want you to accept their words and terms and definitions. They're not going to go back to the beginning of time and go back to the etymology of the words and terms and show you and tell you that the words only communicate a bigger truth and bigger meaning. They don't want you to see the bigger truth and bigger meaning. If you teach someone the real meanings of words, they can't help but to see the bigger picture, right? I mean, it's in the little things. Like lately, you know, there's certain words that have come up more and more. You know, the root words like soul, solitude. You know, they talk about these words and we don't even understand what's being communicated. thinking that solitude is loneliness. Solitude is the root word for soul, like solar, sun, brightness, light. You have to protect your light. You have to protect your power. You can't be out in the world engaging with all these different people and energies and giving your power away and all this. You have to be in a state of solitude. You know, it does not mean loneliness. It means sequestered to a degree, a certain amount of your life with yourself, understanding yourself, working to co-create with yourself and the universe and other versions of self who you resonate with. But, you know, again, we have to get back to words and terms, and that the understanding that these words are not an accident. They're all here with meaning inside of them, and that meaning, like the Tao says 5,000 years ago, whatever it is, words are just fingers pointing at the moon. You know, the sun and the moon are what they are. Life is what it is. These words and terms are fingers pointing us towards an objective truth, right? One truth, one understanding. If we will comprehend it and understand it, right? The word is understand, stand under it. That's the true law.
Okay, we have you pointed out that we have to take back our rights. We have to learn what law, how the system works. We have to see a bigger picture. Have you seen the people start doing this, or have you like teaching people where we should start and what you should know?
Well, I mean, again, to me, it starts like anything else with a common sense. You know, I'm more of a fan of practical understanding, streetwise spirituality, so to speak, where we know who and what we are on a basic level. I know I'm a man, and I know that no other man or woman has a right to tell me what to do, because there's no way you can make it right. You can't explain it to me and make it sound right. It always comes off as do what we say because we believe it's right, or else. That's not a right. That's a wrongdoing. You're using violence to get your way, right? You're not saying to us, hey, we advise you to do this. Please do this. We believe it's what's best. If not, you take the liability onto yourself because you're an adult. You have a choice to do what you want to do. If you get hurt, that's your business. Just don't hurt anyone else. And if you do hurt someone else by accident, right, not on purpose, that's what a crime is. A crime is when you have malicious intent. You intend to cause loss, injury, or harm, and accidents happen in the world. Just make sure you compensate, right? Make that wrong or right to the best of your ability. You know, that's freedom in a world. You're never going to get complete safety. You're never going to get complete control. If you want to have a desirable society and prosperous, you have to allow everybody to govern themselves based on a universal understanding of right from wrong. We do 30 miles an hour on the back road, 20 miles an hour, not because a sign is posted there. We do it because it's common sense. I don't do 100 miles an hour. I don't need to be told not to do 100 miles an hour on a back street because it's just prudent for me to be careful and go slow. I'm not in a rush. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to be out acting like a fool. So when you generally have common sense and are able to govern yourself, government in the world becomes redundant, right? It's unnecessary. It's against the law, the true law. So that's the first and foremost thing that we have to comprehend as beings in this realm, is that there is no way that you can actually objectively, separate from feelings and what you want and don't want to be true, you cannot substantiate the dictation of anyone else to anybody else other than maybe at best a parent to a child. But even now we have an understanding. You can try to cajole that child and influence them and do whatever else. If you start doing violence to that child, you're a wrongdoer. And maybe I'm just one of the younger generations who doesn't appreciate a good beating on a child, like they used to tell me, you know, you got to beat these kids to get them in line. And I just don't agree. I think that there's a way to use love and understanding and cause and effect to teach our young ones. And that the same way, if we teach them as young people how to govern themselves, and we have patience. Again, I don't have quote unquote children. I don't really like the word, but I don't have children at this point. Like they say kids, you know, they're baby goats. That's what the word is. But I don't have these beings, so I can't claim I know what it's like. But I would suspect that this is all one big broken cycle where we continue to use fear to try to impose our will for whatever reason, right? The same way a parent will say, well, I was hitting that child because I was in fear that he wouldn't listen to me and he was going to hurt himself or someone else. So I had to put fear into him. Okay, well, that's the same way police are going to stop you for going 65 instead of 55 and tell you you can't take your property from point A to point B because it's faster than we say. And if you don't listen, we're going to do a little bit of harm to you because we got to teach you through fear. And that's how you get a whole society of people who don't know themselves and don't know the difference between living through faith and living through fear. If you knew who and what you were and knew the difference between right and wrong and had a sense of common sense, like they say, common sense is not common. If we had common sense, we would live by faith and what was true and what was right, and we would be careful, full of care for ourselves and others in the truth. We wouldn't need to be governed. But because we have a whole world that is now, whether by choice or by teaching or a little bit of both, instruction, thousands of years of the same cyclical instructions and ignorance of the real truth, we have a bunch of people who can't govern themselves. They don't know, a lot of them, right? I'm not saying all people. There are people with common sense, but what we can see now, right? I think that's what this time is to show us. There's a lot of people completely who can't govern themselves. They're going to go and take poison and put it into themselves and claim that it's for health and science, while they're smoking cigarettes and everything else that they're involved in. So it seems that, a great preponderance of this world can't really make objectively right choices for themselves and others. They can't govern themselves. So now it's almost appropriate that we have cosmic mothers and fathers who are going to do that for us. But guess what? It's only going to cause more suffering and death because, again, who's ever going to care for you to the level you will? Nobody. Even the best people with the most loving intentions could never care for you the way that you could. So now imagine people who really just want money, power, control, hierarchy, validation. We have a whole world that's now told them, hey, we're going to let you care for us. Look where it goes. So I don't believe we have an option anymore, right? I believe that if we really want to live in a world that's desirable, we have to take on this responsibility. The word is responsibility, the ability to respond to life on life's terms. If we don't take that responsibility and that accountability on fully and stop giving it away, we're going to suffer one way or the other, whether it's going to be disease and death or it's going to be slavery at the hands of regulation.
So pretty much what you see saying is pick your poison. You want to live under someone's telling you something, or you take your own responsibilities and deal with the consequences.
That's it. You have to, and again, they'll say, well, because for the longest time, right, life was pretty good. So people say, why are you making waves? Why you just do what you're told? Just to go along to get along. It was cool for a while. Now look where it got everyone. So now you have to ask yourself, are we going to do what we've always done and get what we always got? Because this is ubiquitous throughout time. Every civilization goes through these cycles. So I say for me, no, I don't need to see anymore. I saw enough a while ago. And then the last 5 years really woke me up and showed me, okay, like the Braveheart speech, all art imitates life. They'll make movies about this stuff. He told them, you can go home, go along to get along, live another day, die in your beds, maybe years from now. Or you can take the time, right? Take this moment to stand up for who and what you are and tell these people that they can take your life, but they can never take your freedom. That's your sole choice, right? The same way they brought the being in the scripture, the Christed being they talk about. A lot of them say that they worship and don't even understand the principles and how he was showing us the way. Even if the being was not really truly existing, it's a principle. The being was brought up on the mountain by the Shaitan figure, right? The evil force that runs the world, and told, just say we're God, just say I'm God, right? Just say that we run your sole choice and we'll take all the suffering and challenges away from you. The being said, I can't do that. So we understand we didn't come here to have a comfortable ride. We came here to take on full accountability, responsibility, which means we're going to be challenged. Absolutely we are. But we have to retain our soul. We have to retain our choice-making ability. If we give that away, universe says, you're nothing. You're worthless. Can't use you, right? Can't use you. Can't back you. You get cut off from the creational force. You have to be communing, right? Community, communion, in communion with that higher force that tells you what's right from wrong. Like they say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So we have to stand on principles. Principle in Latin means what's first and what's true, right? Value system. We have to live from those, especially as men in today's world. If we don't, we're going to lose everything. Because anything you think you have, you can't enjoy it anyway as a man if you're enslaved. You know damn well in your mind and heart that someone else is making choices for you. You can never like yourself in that state, right? That's what respect is, self-respect. You have to be able to make choices from a place of your own mind and heart. If someone else is making choices for you, you'll never have self-respect, you'll never have self-esteem, and you'll never be self-empowered.
Kind of remind me the one the motivational speaker told that if you don't have goals for yourself, then you follow someone else's goals. Because same thing with responsibility. Whether you take the responsibility with someone else, will take it for you. But does that mean that they have a good attention towards you, and maybe they have like one power, but you will just a tool to gain it.
Absolutely. You know, if we all, and again, we're all oneself on a certain level. The only reason we can have conversations and understand each other is because there's one reality that we're all living in. If our brain and our heart and everything is operating correctly, which a lot of times it's not because of trauma, because of our diet, the way we're sleeping, the stress that we're under, all these different things create dis-ease. That's why you have so many folks who can't communicate. That's what cancer is. Cancer is a discommunication between the cells, right? So we see this manifestation of these metaphysical principles. We have to be able to be in a state of rest, a state of balance, a state of co-creation, in a state of faith rather than fear. Again, the whole system is perpetuated on fear-based reality. You better have this job so you can get this money to pay for these bills, so you can attract a mate, so you can have a family and be seen as successful and productive. You know, there are parts of that process that are cool and they're good, but it's about a lot of times how you get it, how you get there. If you get there by compromising your belief systems, your consciousness, the way you were created to fit into someone else's vision and reality, you're going to be, like you said, used as a tool to create someone else's version of reality. So now we have all cities built by people who got paid, all the chemicals sprayed by people who got paid, all the different realities and visions that someone else had that we created for a check just to exist. We could go off and do that same co-creation based on universal law and create our own vision, which isn't our own vision, because again, we're one self. The universe gives us a vision. That's how I came out to the middle of nowhere in Arizona and people started showing up in my life. Oh, hey, here I am. I got some land. Here you go. I'll give you an acre or two. Let's start working. Let's start building, right? We don't need to be part of their systems and circumstances anymore. Once we have X amount of those debt notes or even just an ability to network and co-create, we're out. We go do our own thing. We produce that way. We become more self-sustainable. Now we're in a more faith-based lifestyle, more practical lifestyle where we're co-creating with each other in the universe. We're not involved in having to be a spoke in somebody else's wheel, co-creating somebody else's vision and getting paid pittance. Most of us, we create for people who are going to make millions of dollars, and that's fine. I'm not mad at it. It's great that all that's able to be there. But at a certain point, you say, well, why would I do that? I could go create my own multi-million-dollar ID. May take me 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I don't know. But I can go contribute and invest in myself and what I'm creating and walk away with something at the end of the day other than pieces of paper. Plus, I have a life experience and a fulfillment that comes with that. You're not fulfilled building someone else's stuff, doing some, creating for someone else. There can only be a certain level of fulfillment and joy that you can get, and serenity and peace. I believe the more serenity and peace and joy comes from the more we create from who and what we are. And we stop relying on other people to build it for us. This is back to that whole pursuing comfort versus pursuing from a place of co-creation, right? The more we want to be comfortable and fit into someone else's vision because it's convenient, easy, and what we've been shown, the more we lack true fulfillment, right? The way we get it oftentimes dictates how we'll enjoy it, right? I just see that. Like they say, people who don't work for what they get, they can't enjoy it as much as somebody who really put their all into doing what they love to do and got whatever they got from that way. They're always going to enjoy it more than somebody who just had it handed to them. That's just the way it is. That's why you see so many angry and upset, unfulfilled people in the rich neighborhoods in Hollywood and other places, because how they got it will dictate how they enjoy it. right? Whether or not they can enjoy it. And so now they can't enjoy what they got because they got it either acting like a corporate whore or lying, deceiving, or just having it given to them for acting like somebody else. They'll say, oh, he's an actor in Hollywood, so you get paid to act like somebody else. Seems cool, you would think, to the culture, but what are we really talking about here? You should get paid for being you. That's the whole point. They taught us that you could get paid for acting like somebody else. Well, why can't you then get paid even more for being who you are if who and what you are is the highest value in this realm? You see what I'm saying? It's an adjustment of perception in the way we see ourselves in the world. And it's an adjustment from a perception that was given to us by the cult, you know?
Yeah. You talked about the becoming like self-sufficient. Like now in Estonia, we're like starting to build like communities based on the counties. And the goal is like get out from the system and become like self-reliant of that. You have something I want, you have something, okay, how to say it? You have something I need, but I have something you need. We can trade and help each other and so on. And that way, like going back this like old ways where like, people talking with each other, communicating, trading, working with the land. Like I said, following the common law, making everything based on common sense. And do you think this is like a path to the future, ripping off yourself, getting off the system and become self-reliant? Like
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's the universal program right now, man. Everybody's being given the call of the wild, so to speak, right? We're all being called back to the supernatural. The supernatural just means very natural. So it's very natural for men and women to want to establish their own land, their own water source, their own food, their own community and way of life, you know, co-create something that's worth living in. You have a lot of folks work their whole life just to live in these places amongst people that they don't even get any enjoyment or fulfillment out of. It's foolish. For what? Because they can't imagine a way out. And if they can, they're too lazy or scared to create it. Well, that has to end, right? Necessity is the mother of invention, like they say. So all evil in this realm has a function. It's to wake up good people and get their ass in gear. I'm number one guy for procrastination and being lazy. I could tell you that. Well, what they showed us has got my ass in gear now, right? And it's not about running away or being fearful. It's about running to a lifestyle and being faithful, right? We're going to co-create something outside of this that we say we want because we don't need this anymore over here. It doesn't serve us. It's destroying us, you know? So absolutely, this is a universal program. We're all connected to the same quote unquote God or force. It doesn't matter what language we speak, where we are on the map. We're all the same being. We have the same ability to perceive right from wrong. And again, we have the same ability to connect with the supernatural. And nature right now is telling us, get back to the land, get back to who and what you once were, right?
Let me think a little bit. You said, okay, I'm out of thought right now. So, but okay, but let's talk about your interaction with the police. Like I said, that or we point out one of the videos that you have to always be respectful with the police officer, even though they are not. And I kind of like point out why and give examples where is working and where is if you do it the other way, it's going very badly.
Yeah, I mean, a biggest part of how, for me, how we retain our power is by remaining humble and having humility and having forgiveness and compassion for the ignorant, right? Those who ignore truth or can't conceive of it because they haven't done the self-work, they're as much victims of their own state of being as I am at that time of their ignorance, right? So I have to be highly aware. And again, I don't always hit the mark. There's been times in the past where I have started to mock them and get a little bit, you know, sort of uppity with them. but it's because I get frustrated, right? I'm frustrated that here we are, we're grown people, and we can't come to a reasonable understanding and equitable solution based on what's common sense. You know, we have to bring up all these beliefs just to get down to getting something done. And it's foolish to me. But, you know, really, like I said, our power, the way that we show others who and what we are for them to respond positively, is to stay in a balanced state of being, right? The more that a being who, even if they disagree with you, like Sun Tzu says, I love the quote, you know, this is a war master, I believe, who said it: carry yourself in a way where even your enemies respect you. Now, I don't view these folks as my enemies. I'm just saying, if they don't like me and what I stand for, I at least give them the opportunity to respect me, you know? So I find that we get a lot further in what the goal is, which is to have a free country. Again, if I want a free country and they want a free country, we just disagree on how we're going to get there. So if I expect them to listen to me or look into what I'm saying, I have to be an exemplification of someone who's credible. Somebody who's acting out, screaming, yelling, cursing people out, acting like a child, they're not credible, right? So if you want to be taken seriously, if you want this to be about serving a higher power other than what you want and don't want to be true, you have to be willing to die and go to jail. You have to be willing for them to do harm to you and still remain honorable and faithful and compassionate and understand these folks know not what they do. If they knew better, they do better, because who wants to come here and create a world where you're going to destroy yourself and everyone else and your country and your rights and your freedoms? You're misguided. So I can see further than them. Therefore, I conduct myself in a way that doesn't allow me to get tricked out of my character and my position, right? Because they would love, like they say, misery loves company. They love to see them get a rise out of you and see you get all frantic and act out and full of fear and all the different things. When you just stay who and what you are, I know who and what I am. I know what I'm doing. I know the reason I'm doing it. I understand that it comes with consequences. I'm willing to take on all that. So let's go ahead and get through this so that you can understand once and for all, this is not a game to me, right? You know, like they'll say to me sometimes, oh, this is all an act. This is all a game. I said, some act and some game. I've lost thousands of dollars in property. I've been put in a cage over and over again. You know, they try to put fear into me and threaten me, some of them. By and large, though, there's really not much that comes of it. You know, a bunch of paperwork, a bunch of threats, a bunch of warrants put out, you know, in these different places where, again, what does it mean to me? It's all a fear-based reality where you're trying to use paperwork to compel me to perform. And I'm a man. I don't have to do anything that anybody tells me to do. I didn't do when my parents told me. Why would I do it when other grown men and women tell me? It's absurd to me at this point, especially, like I said, your track record is the best indicator of future results. It's not always indicative of future results. But again, I've caused no harm. Nobody has any issues with me or verified claims. So I wish to be let alone and on my way. That's a pretty common sense understanding. And again, the more, interestingly enough, the more that these public servants get their life regulated and get their livelihoods taken by a system that they once served, the more they're going to be compelled to stop serving that system, because they realize it's not just, it's not moral, and it's not logical. You know, so you have the best of times and the worst of times right now, where a lot of folks who've been working those levers are waking up and saying, "Now we're done. We're not going to fill the warrants because there's no bond attached. We're not going to go and invade somebody's property because you want to use fraudulent obligations, securities, and bonds and forged contracts." Right? This system is coming down now, and it's not because we're overthrowing it. It's because we're shining a light on it. And the more we shine a light on it and people see what it is and realize they don't like what it is, they're going to stop serving it, right? So it's all, again, we're not using violence. We're using freedom of choice through informed decision-making, right? By revealing truth. That's what apocalypse in Greek means. Apokalypsahim means the revealing of the truth that's always been present. Government has always been mind control and slavery, and always been populated 99% of the time everywhere by people who can't distinguish right from wrong, but are willing to follow orders. The more that we accept this as a dynamic that is okay and true in our reality, the more we will suffer and lose our societies. We need to be populated by a group of men and women who can think for themselves, govern themselves, and pursue property and happiness without causing harm to others.
But can you explain why police officers acting like this, like say, dictatorial manner, like they like to force their will upon you instead of finding ways to work with you? Okay, I'm a man, you are a man, I have family, you have family. Let's work something out. But what is like? Why are they doing this way? Fear-based the way of controlling you.
They're controlled by the same fear dynamic, right? The idea that I've been trained to do this in order for me to do what I'm doing, because inherently, whether they realize it or not, their nervous system knows it's wrong. It's bizarre behavior to stop someone on the side of the road, come up to their car. And that's the situation that like our genetics are programmed to not want to do, right? You don't approach another man or woman's property, right? The same way an animal knows. You don't come up to my hole. There's no reason to. I didn't ask you to. We don't know each other. It's common sense. So in order to be trained to do work like this, you have to almost develop an alter ego. You either have to be very evolved, right, where you understand that this is all just a game and a system and you're playing a part, and you have to see, if you don't see that, you're going to have to develop a whole alter ego in order to do what you're doing, because it's not natural. It's not meant to be. So these folks are filled with almost like an animal. They have more fear of us than we do of them, but then they become reactive, right? So because they're in fear walking up to our car, they've been trained, oh, the sovereign citizens are out. They're dangerous people. They don't got plates and licenses. They're going to try to use paperwork to take your house. They fill their heads full of fear and get them all fear-based. And then they also tell them, you got to make X amount of arrests. This is the Colorado State revised statute. This is law. They teach them all this shit and then make them feel like if they don't follow along, that they're betraying some kind of thing that they have to be a part of, right? Some kind of society. So I may be speaking and they know what I'm saying on a certain level is true, but they can't accept it because in their mind, it's betraying the society and what's true and what's right. Again, these are folks who don't know objectively what's true and what's right. So they're able to be, again, what did Voltaire say? Those who believe absurdities will commit atrocities. So if you can make folks believe in a version of reality that is completely absurd, right? We're going to hire folks to kill, steal, kidnap, to protect us from folks who kill, steal, and kidnap. You know what I'm saying? Like the logic is backward and bizarre. So, you know, we have to understand that no matter how much it feels like it's what we're used to and it makes sense, when you write it all out and look at what's happening, you know, I've caused harm to nobody, yet loss and harm has been done to me over and over again. Why? Because I want to move my property around unregulated. So how did you turn a harmless behavior into a harmful act to me, right? Because of a belief. If enough people will believe in absurd notions, then atrocities will happen, right? People get shot every day in the street because someone somewhere wrote some code in a book and they didn't follow it. But there's no victim, there's no wrong done, there's no crime. But again, belief systems, a matrix, right? What is the matrix? The little green letters and numbers is code. So they tell us all, well, what does the code say? Go to the code book. We're all run by a matrix, right? So there's no separation between the slave who follows orders and a cop who follows orders. The code is fear, right? If these were faithful beings who understood who and what they were and the difference between right from wrong, they couldn't be red pill. They're all existing in that blue pill matrix reality where they'd rather go back to sleep and ignore the truth because they have a check waiting for them. You know, so again, they don't see it that way. Most folks don't see it that way. That's why mind control works so well, mind and heart control, because they don't see that there's levels to it. It's a survival instinct they've been put into. Got to make money, got to survive. This is all I know. Got to follow orders. If I don't, something's going to happen to me, right? And then the belief that they can live like that and not suffer. Well, I make my money, I make good money, I follow orders, I'm not interested in right from wrong, I'm just here to do a job. And then I would believe they find that their life just isn't really as good as it could be. And they're not aware of that either. But I would suspect, right, I guess I'm making sort of an arrogant kind of claim, but I would love to get 50 cops in a room who have been nothing but order followers their whole life and ask them if they were ever able to enjoy who and what they are as a being and what they have, right? And then take another 50 people and then just observe them, their energy, their way of speaking. How much are you buying into what they're selling? You know, because I would suspect a man or woman who puts on that uniform and really cares about his country, wants to uphold rights and freedoms, and isn't interested in legalese code, which is a separate language, that's a being who's going to really have self-esteem and self-respect, like I said before. You know, I think a majority of these folks, they're never going to touch the level of self-esteem, self-respect, and self-empowerment that the next man will. They'll never even know it. But it's all going to be based on the way that they're living, right? Truth, life, and way. If you're living in a deception and you're going against the program of life, right? And you want to live your own way or the way somebody else has ordered you to live, you don't want to observe that objective truth, you're not going to have access to that kingdom of heaven, you know? And again, these are religious terms, so to speak, but this is also like a nirvana. It's a state of being where you really like your life and who you are and what you see on the horizon. I know what it's like to live from the other perspective, and I know what it's like to live from this perspective. And that's why I believe I can talk about this and teach it, because to me, there's no difference between being a follower on the streets, taking drugs, using drugs, working for corporations, not knowing who and what I am, and putting on a costume and taking adrenaline drugs every day, right? Having to chase people around and walk up to cars and getting adrenaline rushes and being a follower. It's all the same lifestyle. It's two opposite ends of the same lifestyle, right? Two sides of the same coin. You'll never have self-respect, self-esteem, or self-empowerment. That's why a lot of these folks wind up committing suicide, drinking and drugging, beating on their women, because they're insecure. They don't like their life, who and what they are and what they stand for, and they don't get respect. They don't have self-respect, therefore they don't get respect from others. They get fear, but they don't get true respect, right? And a human being thrives off mutual respect. We think, our ego thinks that we thrive off being feared, but really we want to be loved, I believe, right? We want to be loved and respected. The only way to do that is by doing respectable and esteemable actions in the way that you live. Following orders and causing other people loss and harm because some man wrote it down in a book to make money, that's nonsense. You're never going to like yourself in your life. So it don't matter what you do to me. I'll always have a better life than you, even if I have less than you. I'll always like myself more, who and what I am and what I've come here to do. I'll always be better off than you. And it's not a competition. I'm just saying, you know, I can give these folks an access to a better way to live, and they'll appreciate it. You can too, right? Every time you interact with those, there's no difference between me and an Estonian policy enforcement officer, right? When we come from a space of love and connection and understand that that's a version of me who's either misguided or ignorant. I've been misguided and ignorant in the past. Show them something, right? Touch their mind and heart and show them something different. And you best believe, like I've seen with different officers, they change their tune, completely change how they deal with me and how they speak with me. Even some of them quitting their job because they don't want to be a part of it anymore. And then that's cowardice too, because really they should stay in their job and make a change. Don't leave. Now that you see it for what it really is, you want to run away. That's not the answer either. You need to work within it and work with it and change it, right? And the only way we're going to do that is communication, man.
Yeah. Right now, in our Estonian police force, they vomit the vaccines, and those people who didn't want to be forced to leave when they went to court. They some can get, they won something, but essentially those who are in power want to get their way, and so for in their minds they're like a choice, they have to leave. And also a couple of people who thinks that this kind of attitude is like is tailored just to get rid of the people and replace the newer ones with robots. And like you see in movies that the law enforcers are not humans but robots. That's like the future will be that, or want them to be. But we really believe that no, that will never happen, because they're not people are weak enough so they are going to resist this movement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it could go either way. I think there definitely seems to be, like you said, a sort of a plan or a program that certain folks have come up with that they want to bring about. But, again, it can only be brought about if we build it. The same folks who everyone blames for doing everything to them, they don't seem to understand that everything that they've done to us, we've built for them to do. We've built it. We've manned the machines and the levers. We've done it all. Each one of us, right? It wasn't some nefarious group who gave out the poison, and it was your aunts, your uncle, it was your neighbors, right? Maybe some of you even did it. So, whoever is giving the orders or giving the suggestions at the top is not as liable and culpable as every single person under them who's taken the orders and manned the levers and worked the beast system themselves, right? So when everyone says, or enough people say, no, I'm done, I'm out, not only am I not going to work and serve the beast, work for it and serve it, I'm not going to comply with it because I understand that it's not a benefit to me, right? Oh, okay, you're going to fear me, you're going to put me in jail, you're going to find whatever. You're going to do it anyway. See, there comes a point where we realize they're going to do it anyway. The ubiquitous they. And again, it's not going to be Billy Gates and Fauci who come and put you in jail. It's going to be your aunt and your uncle. It's going to be your neighbor. It's going to be your brother who's just doing their job, just like in Nazi Germany, just doing their jobs, right? This has gone on over and over and over again. So I don't play victim. I don't play the blame game. If you want to blame, like the guy said in V for Vendetta, I know who to blame. Go to the nearest mirror and look into it, right? We have created this. We have built this. We are operating this. And when we choose to stop, the game will end.
I will agree that even though I understand that we have the power to say no, but and in my example, I lost two of my previous jobs because I refused to follow the guidelines and wear a mask. But they're also like people like, why just do what you're told, but they don't understand. No, you can say no, but for them it's like, no, here's the rule. Here is the rules. You have to follow the rules. But for me, also the problem is that they don't ask, okay, where these rules come from? Do I need to follow them? They don't like ask these like basic questions, and then like later on they blame. Okay, ask themselves, how we come so far that we're like in prison and living this tyrannical dictatorship, or they themselves put themselves in there.
Well, yeah, like you said, because it's a whole breeding system from day one of parents follow the rules, teachers follow the rules, authorities follow the rules, and nobody ever stops to question. And when they do stop to question, they get punished, and then their spirit is broken, and they decide, usually, for the most part, hey, here's who's in charge, here's who's in control, and we're gonna, ingratiate ourselves with them by following orders. We're going to accept the dynamics of control, and we're going to cozy up to whoever that controller is. That's what most folks do, or they try to hide, right? I just prefer to be completely honorable and respectful to myself and others and say, I'm not running and hiding. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not looking to get away with anything. If I cause loss, injury, and harm, I should be held accountable and responsible. If not, I have a right to govern myself however I please because I'm a grown man or woman. I'm nobody's child. Right? Even a child can't be made to do what you want to do by causing it loss and harm, right? So, at the end of the day, you can take some toys away from it here and there, but the bottom line is, you get what I'm saying, is you can't make a dog or a child do what you want them to do without them choosing to do it. So when I'm saying that, I don't choose to do anything that causes loss, injury, and harm, then what do any authorities have any issue with me for that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because again, it's either about safety, it's about rights, or it's about outright extortion and control. So either you're a wrongdoer or you want to create law and order, which I'm completely for, right? Because again, like I outlined, the only true, real form of law and order is self-government, because you can't be in all places at all times. You can't force everybody to do what's true and what's right. A being who cares about what's true and what's right will attempt to do right and be careful all the time. So that's the best and most truest and foolproof form of law and order, is a bunch of beings who ascertain right from wrong and then serve that understanding.
Okay, Paul, we have talking more than an hour. Are you tired, or you want to speak more?
I mean, I it's kind of, I guess, up to you. You know, I could go either way, but we can always come back. I mean, you know, I'd like to go maybe eat something and you know, take care of some other stuff, but we could come back.
Okay, but let's do it another time then.
Yeah, we can come back. You know, we don't want to wear it out too much, right? I mean, there's only so much. Well, I guess we could talk for a while, really. I mean, there's always something to talk about, but I think along this line of sort of commentary, we've pretty much run its course. But yeah, if you want to come back, I think we can come back and, you know, maybe come up with some more detailed sort of questions, or maybe if you have some audience, you know, input or questions, if there's some specific things, you know, because I'm sure every audience is kind of the same and also a little bit different based on the country and the culture and all that. So I'd be interested to see, you know, what the Estonian folks think and what they want to hear about and know about. And yeah, I'm here.
Okay, but Paul, thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Okay, bye.